Have you ever found yourself sitting around and playing video games or watching TV to the point you lose track of time? But later, when you try to study or read a book, you keep track of every single minute because you are just ready for it to be over? Why does it seem like certain people are just motivated to do certain hard tasks like these, while others are stuck in a loop of procrastination with social media scrolling instead of working on their business? In this video, I'm showing you the #1 way I've learned to stop procrastinating on hard projects that you know you should be doing, like the ones that are going to be progressing your life, and how to make them easy and cheat yourself into finishing them. I'm also going to show you why van life makes this idea I'm about to share so much better. Let's get into it.
We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars, or hang out in hotel bars, driving somewhere in your car. We can sleep under
You know in your head right now what you need to do today and the next day and so on to be successful at whatever it is you want to be successful at. But why can't you bring yourself to do the necessary work day in and day out? Why is it so hard to find the motivation to build a business? But on the flip side, it's so easy to get on a console and play video games and spend hours on TV. It all has to do with the hormone of motivation called dopamine. Dopamine can be our enemy, but if we understand it, it could be our ally and work for us. There was a study done on rats. They put a rat in a cage with a button. Every time that rat pressed the button, it would receive a dose of a certain hard drug. After a very short time, the rat's brain would produce dopamine in anticipation of receiving that drug. The rat quickly learned to keep pressing that button because it wanted the reward, continuing the cycle of dopamine in its brain. But they found it would just keep pressing the button and lose motivation to do anything else. And I mean that rat would press that button until it starved to death and died. They found that the rat would get too tolerant of the overwhelming amounts of dopamine that it would only have enough motivation to move or eat if the scientists put the food right up to its mouth. The scientists were clever though. When they removed the hard drug from pressing the button, they found that the rat still kept pressing the button since the dopamine was still being produced in the anticipation of the reward, even though they didn't get the reward. Dopamine is produced in anticipation of something rewarding in our brains. Your brain produces dopamine in anticipation of eating a piece of cake or accomplishing something on a video game. Once you get your reward, the dopamine stops being produced. Therefore, dopamine is produced to motivate you to do something, whether it's good, bad, or terrible for you in the long term. It just cares about quick rewards that will make you temporarily feel good. It does not discriminate against the things that will end up giving you cancer or will waste your life away. I swear this video ties into van life. I'll get into that in a second, but first I want to go over why this is such a big deal and why I think it's going to help you and me so much. Dopamine acts just like a drug because it is a drug the body produces normally. If you have too much dopamine, you form a tolerance. Like with alcohol, if you get drunk all the time, you need to drink a lot more to get drunk the next time, and so on. There are so many stimulating factors in our modern day life that are making our brains have crazy amounts of dopamine levels, which in turn leads to an overwhelmed brain that sees everything as meaningless or ultimately boring, given it doesn't stimulate our senses like it should. Like we as human animals are supposed to be down here with dopamine levels, but because of constant video games, TV, social media scrolling, and sugary foods, our levels are up to here, and our bodies now needs to produce so much more to motivate us to do the boring tasks in our life, like creating a new stream of income, or studying for a test, or even exercising. This is where the dopamine detox comes in. If we manage our levels of dopamine, we can effectively make the boring things in our lives that we should be doing seem really exciting. If you go without your guilty pleasures that produce these large levels of dopamine, you can reset your motivational hormone levels. This takes most people 4 to 5 days. You probably won't see much motivational improvement on the first 2 days, but just keep going without your vices and you'll soon be waking up excited as hell again to work on your business or read a book. First thing to do, stop allowing yourself access to your vices, video games, TV, social media, and stop looking at naked people on the internet because that's one too. Just don't do them for the first 4 days of the detox, and then you can manage them afterwards. Like, only allow yourself to watch TV after you've completed all of your work. The key word here is manage. You need to manage your vices so they don't make you relapse on the motivational drug dopamine. We are effectively returning our body to normal levels of dopamine like nature intended. I constantly look at van life as a way to get success. I told you van life is an amazing way to get into all this and help you detach from dopamine. Van life helps us to disconnect from electronics because we have limited power. We still have our phones and social media, sure, but our ability to stay on the TV and computer all day is limited and discouraged because of our unwillingness to hurt our van's battery life, because these things can run down a solar battery rather quickly depending on your setup. This happens to be a good thing in this case. It kind of forces us to go back to a more boring and simple style of living, one that most people today desperately need. Don't get me wrong, van life can be exciting as hell at times, but it also puts us in some boring circumstances, which in turn lowers our dopamine levels just like people throughout history have lived. Our modern day society is for sure the exception. We are unknowingly fighting so hard against our human nature. Humans did not evolve to be under constant stimulation, and we probably weren't meant to be happy 24/7 either. Van life helps by minimizing our access to these channels naturally. Back just 100 years ago, all of these modern day electronics didn't exist. Even this 24/7 white light, like up here, this white lighting that hits us all day long and night, makes most people stay up way later than ever and ruins what would otherwise be normal sleep cycles. You could build your van to have red lights at night to stimulate the red light from a campfire. At the end of the day, humans were used to this red light. It allowed them to fall into normal cortisol and melatonin cycles to maximize sleep benefits by keeping a normal circadian rhythm. We need to go back to nature to become normal again in many areas of our life, and van life is here to help. You gotta remember, we have so much convenience today that makes it so easy to string together a bunch of satisfying dopamine-inducing rewards very quickly and unnaturally. Today, watching TV is as easy as pressing a button and sitting in your own comfort. Back hundreds of years ago, we would have to delay gratification by days or months even to wait until a play or opera was going on that we even wanted to see. Then we had to travel to see it. TV these days is just a grab for dopamine, throwing fast-paced action at you, all channels competing for your attention by trying to induce the most dopamine possible. No wonder why people have the attention span of ADHD teenagers. If you were to witness a play from back in the day, it would be dreadfully slow, moving, and so boring for us today. Look at some of the black and white films we still have from the early TV. Might not be like super boring, but because that's relatively new still, but still it's kind of boring, to some people. But back then, people loved it and would have plenty of fun, because they weren't used to the levels of dopamine these now boring shows would create for their brains. Being bored is not a bad thing. In fact, it is the goal of the dopamine detox. If you find yourself bored, then you are doing it right. Let's talk about what you're allowed to do during a dopamine detox. You're allowed to take a walk. Talking to people is okay, but try to limit it while on the detox period. Talking does actually give us a dopamine, small dopamine rushes. You are also allowed to read a book or learn a helpful topic on an audiobook. You are allowed to eat healthy greens or plain meats like chicken breast. For the first 4 days, you should not allow yourself to pick up your phone for social media. Try to put your phone in airplane mode. If you can, put it somewhere off your body or under your van bed if you live in a van, or just delete all your social media apps. The biggest sign that you have a dopamine problem is when you pick up your phone without thinking of it, when you are bored to check social media or play phone games. You also should not watch TV, play any video games, or look at naked pictures of people online, and refrain from sex during this time as well. Also, don't do any drugs, including smoking cigarettes. Basically, avoid everything. And I mean everything that gives you a short-term pleasure for 4 days. Just be bored. You'll be well on your way on resetting your hormones surrounding motivation for what really counts in life. Remember that you are doing this for yourself. Your success and progress is what makes you happy, not video games and candy. And guys, I'm not saying that I don't play video games ever. As you saw in another video of mine, I am a gamer. I play video games in here. I've showed you that. Another strong way of looking at this is just do one of two things. You either do your work or you sit and stare at a wall and just be bored. After a while, the work will start to look a lot more fun. I promise you that. I can vouch for this method personally. After my first full day of doing the detox, I finished the rough draft for this video. As many of you have noticed, I've been putting off creating another video for over a month. This is some powerful stuff. By doing these things, you'll notice yourself being more and more okay with not having to always surround yourself with constant distractions. And you'll most definitely be able to focus more on what you know needs to be done, because these things will become exciting to you. Dopamine builds habits and loops, making dopamine work for you. You might also notice yourself spending less money. You won't have all those dopamine cravings for eating out fancy or buying new video games or cigarettes if you've been smoking. I don't smoke, by the way. You will also notice yourself wanting to fill your boring time with actual work-related stuff more and more over time. You should be strict on these things for the first 4 days at least, but van life will definitely help over a longer period of time, no matter what you do. I personally noticed van life slows my life down because of the natural dopamine detox that the lifestyle places upon you. I'm usually more focused on my projects when I'm not just sitting in my van scrolling Facebook and such on my phone, But even then, I still get work done during the day. If you don't live in a van, by the way, you can for sure still do this. It just might be a little easier for you to relapse into playing on your electronics again, since you have access to the plug in the wall, not solar panels. Remember this, guys. If this was easy, everyone would do it, and it would be hard to compete with everyone. But dude, no one is doing this stuff, so you have a tremendous advantage if you do. This video should tell you how everything you do affects everything else in your life. Everything you do is a drug. Alcohol can help ruin your life just like too much dopamine can. So being bored should not look like such a bad thing anymore. For the fans of this channel, I just started up a Patreon account. If you want to help support me, there's finally a way. I'm giving you guys benefits like raw vlogs that show my private life on the road. Like I just put up a few videos on there. One of them was about my wood stove and how I use it. And then I got a server set up for you guys so you can message me whenever and ask me any questions you want, as much as you want. And finally, you guys will get my personal private map with some of the most beautiful locations I've personally been to for overnight parking. Free overnight parking too, which includes an entire list of my Florida Key spots, because the Florida Keys is extremely hard to park in. I'll be adding a few more benefits too over time. The link for all of this is in the description below. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and click on one of these two links to continue your Outdoors Embrace video marathon. Click on this one. It's a tour of my van if you haven't seen it yet. Otherwise, click on this one. Also, please like and share the video and subscribe because it helps the algorithm on YouTube so much. I'll see you guys in my next video.